Hey, and welcome to another episode of AT Banter.
Banter, banter.
Hey, this is, of course, the podcast where we talk about advocates and members of the disability and cowbells of all sizes and shapes to educate and inspire better conversation about disability. Hey, my name is Rob Minot, and joining me today, Mr. Ryan Fleury.
Hello, everyone.
And hey, look who else it is. It's Miss Liz Malone.
Hi.
Oh, you need an energy bar.
I do. Listen, getting my microphone to work kind of zapped me. That was too much work.
Yeah.
Well, we've been trying to upgrade your microphone for what, 3 years now? 4 years now?
No, this is a new microphone. Shut up. Stop it. Who asked you?
Nobody told me. Nobody asked me.
God. You know what? Just for that to prove how good my microphone is, I'm going to feed my dog right now a treat and make it really noisy.
Do you guys hear the teacher from like the Peanuts?
I'm going to just make this an episode where I make as much microphone noise as possible so that I annoy and also cause a lot of editing.
Yeah, listen, dude. Yeah, grab some potato chips.
It's like a twofer.
I like it. New concept for the show.
Mm-hmm. We like new concepts.
Well, how's everybody doing?
Fine and dandy.
Are we still reeling from the news that I won the hockey poll? Is everybody okay now?
Well, did you though, or did Artie win the hockey poll?
I don't know. I guess I need a real quick update because I know that it's a bit nebulous, and we kind of ordered some of the episodes that we released weeks past out of order. So,
right,
but
Liz,
can we go over the final results?
Oh well, okay. So technically, Artie won by 1 point.
Yeah,
but as far as the AT Banter crew goes, Rob was the surprise pony coming in from out of nowhere.
Yeah.
With his random pick.
Thank you.
But I do think that I'm really the actual winner since my second favorite team won.
That wasn't part of the contest.
I will take my opportunity to gloat at any given
Can I have opportunity
chance.
to gloat for 400, Alex?
Well, okay. So, what lessons did we learn though? So, I guess should we include Artie?
No. If we're going to include Artie has to join from the beginning because Steve, when he put in his prompt, he said, disregarding the actual standings of the current state of the playoffs, like who do you pick? And it was all awesome because I'm sorry, Artie disregarded that part of the prompt. So Artie's a big cheater, pumpkin eater.
Well, so I mean, listen, it's good to know. It was an experiment. It was an experiment that answers the question: can artificial intelligence cheat? And it certainly can.
Yeah, it can,
and it will. Yeah, it did. So happily.
Yeah, but I'm very interested to see what happens next year. We will start from the very beginning. Artie can join in, and I'm assuming Artie will go by just the odds.
Sure.
It'll probably I'm willing to bet that it would mirror the Vegas odds, but
we shall
who knows?
See.
Yeah, we shall see.
We will see. So Rob, I hope you're enjoying wearing your ugly sweater in June.
I did not. I full disclosure, I did not break out the sweater at all because it was way too hot, and plus, you
didn't want to get beat up.
That's what I suspected would happen. I figured that Artie would take it, but I will take my second place spot with pride, ready to go. I'll probably just pick Edmonton again next year. So
you can take.
You already have my pick for next year because I have the sweater.
You can take opportunity to gloat for 400.
No gloating. I'm not going to gloat. Bigger man than that.
That's going to be a new segment. Opportunity to gloat.
Well, there you go. All right. Well, enough of that. So I think we should just get started with the show. What do you think?
Yep, let's do it.
All right. Well, Mr. Ryan.
Yes, sir, Rob.
What the heck are we doing today?
Today we are speaking with someone who is returning to AT Banter. He has worked with AMI for over 2 decades, first starting as a studio producer. He is an avid sports fan who unfortunately follows the Toronto Blue Jays and the Raptors. Kelly McDonald, welcome back to AT Banter.
I should be in on that Florida boat, right? I mean, the reality is everyone in Canada hates them so much as guys because that's a really complete team. And we know we're going to see them again and again and again. So I do understand that being a second favorite team, even though you got to stick with your Hurricanes?
Devils.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oof, I was afraid I was actually correct there.
I
really
hate the
good.
Hurricanes, so
Yeah, that's I'm not even sure how come. They're just one of those teams that gets on your nerves. But wow, throwing Edmonton out there at the beginning of the season, you must have to start during the season because Rod, there were those times where they were like, "Oh, we're not just going to carry on here. We're just fumbling, we're stumbling," and they did. That really amazing. It was great having all the Canadian teams in there, and then having all the warm states teams from states that were warm. It was really interesting.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. I mean, Dallas Stars, Florida, like it was wow.
true.
Oh, LA popped in there too again.
Yep.
So we'll have you back on next year in time to join in on the hockey poll next year.
yeah, we'll send you the brackets.
Yeah, because these guys need actual competition. Because the way that I'm picking the teams is just based on a thrift store sweater that I bought once that had the Edmonton Oilers.
I was going to
So I
say
went
I
with
didn't even
them.
think you were a real sports fan. I thought.
Yeah, I see exactly.
No,
So-
yeah. It's funny. It's like the horseshoe just happened to land next to you. That day. I was like, look at that.
There's a reason why when they get like try to get a chicken or a monkey or something to play the hockey pool and it ends up winning. It's the same concept.
Yeah, it was funny
the
because
show's monkey.
I'm more of a basketball, as you said, baseball kind of fan. The hockey I love is junior hockey, and that's because my home is London, Ontario, which everyone knows.
London Knights.
The big hockey team of junior hockey in the world is the London Knights.
Yep.
Well, there you go. See, and you know, I mean, we're going to invite you on anytime that we're talking about these guys want to talk about sports because you're going to be a much better foil for them than me. So
Well, you know, Kelly, Rob coined the phrase "Go Sports."
Yeah, exactly. And he's going to claim it's inclusive. Yeah, but I'm not just singling anyone out.
that's right.
I'm not that kind of a person. What do you think
All
I am?
sports.
Some kind of sports racist?
That's right.
Sportsist?
Sportsist. I love you.
It's nice.
All right. Well, listen, just for those people out there in our audience that have been living under a rock for quite a while, let's give them a little bit of just a sort of a brief overview of who this Kelly McDonald fella is and what you've been up to.
Well, I've, as you guys coined off the top, I've worked at AMI, Accessible Media Inc., for over 2 decades. Coming up, I'll be 24 years this September at the company. And everybody I know in media elsewise says to me, 24, nobody stays anywhere that long. So I have been very lucky when I've hung out with any of my schoolmates from Fanshawe College, where I went to broadcast radio school. About 33 of us passed. I think there might be 3 or 4 of us still working in broadcasting at all. And a lot of them got out of it in really about 8-9 years after we finished college, or were pushed out of it because of the market, the way it's been. And even in school, we were told it's something people do out of love, or they've been told too much by their family. Oh, you're great. You're funny. You should be on radio. Or the whole face for radio kind of thing in my account. I have really been privileged to work there because I didn't want to work at AMI. I originally thought I don't want to work for the blind broadcaster, which is what, of course, coming out of college, I pinned it as. And it wasn't because of anything to do with what they were or weren't doing or the work. It was credible. It was important to our community. It was that whole business of, well, I would really like to make it easier to get jobs at other broadcasters so that we aren't put into, well, why don't you just go work for that AMI? I wanted to do on air, and I wanted to have a day shift. I didn't care if it was middays, overnight. I wanted to be an on-air personality for a commercial local broadcaster. Fast forward a few years of looking, bugging the people I started to at AMI, and I had an opportunity to do some summer fill, which led into a technical producing job. And I did that for a number of years, became a coordinator in Toronto over some internet-based stuff we were creating then using local papers. So the reading service that AMI Audio was at the time, that was kind of where I cut my teeth. We worked on accessible softwares. We started to learn a lot more about that. Had readers in to record stuff, and I did a little bit of interview stuff on the side. But I wasn't a journalist, and I kept telling people that. So therefore, they didn't pay me for it. It was just something I did on the side. So as that progressed, as we got better at that, the idea came to get an accessible TV channel. Fast forward, go to the CRTC, get a license to do that full service channel, which primarily would be a resource for audio description to be on. People wouldn't have to go fiddling around trying to get it turned on through SAP. We would become the world's first 24-hour-a-day audio described channel, and of course with closed captioning and programming that as we started to produce our own content, targeted more and more the disabled community, which is where we find ourselves now, doing more of that and being very proud of the content. So the idea is for the TV side, let's take this content, make it evergreen. At one point, I had a show called Blindsighted. You can find seasons 2 and 3 online, actually, if you search them. Had fun doing it. I certainly was out there getting a chance to do lots of stuff, as well as working on the AMI This Week program. And I even pitched a show idea or two. And that was kind of fun as we started to really embrace television. Me always saying that I'm a radio guy. I got asked would I be interested in doing an afternoon show? Now, this came on the heels of the morning show being launched in 2016. Of which I was told before that, when I heard about the show, which was a couple of years before, that, well, we'd like to do a morning show on the audio service, but we're a reading service. We're not really supposed to do that. Shh. So we decided to give it a shot. We got the CRTC blessing to do so, to make that little change, because we really wanted to point out, as much as a lot of the stuff that our reading articles were fairly timely. They were most recent papers that were out, and their most recent publication. We were able to pull stuff out of there, turn it around, get some of the articles on air. But there's nothing like having that show where you can talk about something, debate it, discuss it, bring people on who are the people who know. And that's where the idea came of these live shows, what they might be able to do for the community, bring community reporters out there that will talk about things in people's region, people from the community. And of course, the thing that we had the challenge of is we didn't have enough people skilled in broadcasting. These were going to be people that were raw and had to learn on the fly, that we had to help and convert into broadcasters. Oh boy, was that a lot of fun, but I'll save that. It was one of those things that when I first heard about it, the idea was myself and DJ Damaris the comic, get him to, and who he was working with AMI at the time, as a reporter like I was, get maybe the two of us hosting a show. Well, as it got closer and DJ left and went to LA to work and do comedy there, I was told that I couldn't audition. And I said, what are you talking about? You put me on TV that I never went to school for. I know nothing about it. I'm managing okay, but I did go to broadcast school. Maybe I could lend something useful to this. No. And I understood. They didn't really want to go taking from the cookie jar of TV and moving any of the people who were doing TV stuff and upsetting the apple cart. I did understand, didn't love the idea, so I closely watched what was going on. Anyway, once it went on the air, I found myself on the third day being a co-host with Michael Ross, and it was a lot of fun to go back to radio. Now, at that point, when I started working at AMI, I had been working for CJCS Radio in Stratford, Ontario, and it was through a program, so I was only there for 8 months doing a nighttime show in 2001. That was my last on air until 2016 when I sat beside Mike Ross in the studio, did that for a few weeks, was taken out to lunch and asked if I'd be interested in an afternoon show. And by that, hosting it. I think some of the people who hired me at AMI forgot I ever went to broadcast school for radio. And I took a couple of months and got an apartment in Toronto. And meanwhile, I was commuting back and forth, always waiting for us to do something in London and open an office. And that kind of went by the wayside. And when it went by the wayside, I started to work from home a bit. So when I started doing Kelly and Company, I had to be in Toronto 5 days a week. And of course, this wonderful thing came, the pandemic. And by then we had made a shift. We had some money in the kitty. So we set up a studio at my home in London. I started to broadcast from there, which I think really sold because we all know, I'm sure you guys will totally agree, everybody hates Toronto. So people would hear, hey, he's in London, Ontario. Well, that's not too bad. That's okay then. If he was still in that Toronto, oh my God. It seemed to work for the show. It seemed to work when we started to roll out special weeks that we would do, such as Back to Basics. Our current senior producer at the time was our technical producer, and he was always curious. Matt would ask all sorts of blind related questions of myself and Ramya, the host of the show. And we'd do our best to answer them, but Matt was always so curious about this, about that. How does tech work that way? Tell me a little bit about Braille or whatever. He tried very hard to understand things, but one of the things that puzzled him is when we would say the medical field isn't the greatest when someone gets a diagnosis of blindness. He said, "What do you mean?" "Well, they're basically told they're blind and we'll see you next month for your follow-up." Not, okay, here's where you could go to for assistance. This is the store. That is one of the things that we, in our experience with people that we know who have entered the sight loss community, this seems to be a repeating theme. Well, we got talking and Matt came up with an idea for what we called Back to Basics Week. I point this out only because that week, as far as we can chart back to, seemed to be the week that people discovered Kelly and Company, discovered what we do, the way we do things. I always say to people, Kelly and Company was like going to school, learning a whole bunch of stuff from these contributors. We had about 6 different people on the program a day in a 2-hour period, and they talk about different subjects from pet care to lifestyle stuff, entertainment. We had external guests that we'd just come on to promote something or just to have fun talking to us. Some of the sports people out there around Canada would come and talk different things. It was a joy to learn that way about stuff. And not to mention, we could play class clowns if we wanted to as well in that time, and hopefully feel that people were with us. Anyway, guys, that's kind of the deal that I've been lucky enough, and God bless, I will say, because this was my dream as a kid, not necessarily to do a talk show hosting gig, but to do the job of being on radio, or the closest thing to it, at the broadcaster I originally didn't want to be at. And I will say I've probably done, well, I know I have had more cool experiences at AMI than I ever would have at any other broadcaster.
So, as we all know, and especially since COVID, the media landscape has been changing quite a bit. Can you kind of speak a little bit about that, about sort of your viewpoint from AMI and just how you've kind of gotten affected by it?
I used to feel so comfortable and safe at AMI in the sense of we had a lot of staff. We had our Montreal office open once we had the full service TV channel going. We made some changes because we did have offices across Canada, but we felt that wasn't really prudent to do so. Before the pandemic, when streaming started, that was our first sign of, could be trouble in paradise. And when I say that, it's the fact that so many people, especially our younger people out there, have no interest in cable. When AMI went on the air, originally with the audio service, the CRTC said, here's how you will survive. We will allow X number of cents off of everyone's cable and satellite service to carry you. And over the years, we've done our best. When we got the TV channel and AMI Tele out of Montreal, same kinds of things. The CRTC applied an amount of money that allowed us to have an income. Since people have been cutting their cable, turning to other means online, we have seen our money that we receive dwindle, get lower and lower. And again, it was predictable. We knew this was going to be an issue. The company has done what they can with the finance people to make things work. But over that time, we knew we'd have to approach the CRTC and discuss either raising what we get from cable and satellite, but also recognizing that won't be enough. Like that would just be ridiculous. We aren't the only broadcaster out there that receives money this way as a must carry service, a 9/11 service, a carriage is what they call it, 9/11 carriage. So how do we manage that? When do we ask for it? What's appropriate? We don't want to bite off more than we can chew and make anyone say, well, how do you deserve that more than? We think we bring a great product forward. We think there's a reason for us to exist when it comes to the disabled community, but then we're biased. So as the pandemic came, a lot of broadcasters, all broadcasters that were coming up for their licenses, had been put off. As we know, the world basically came to a screeching halt. Now we're not able to go and ask for that money. We were all glad to get extensions on our licenses so we could stay broadcasting and doing what we do. Status quo, we're quite happy with that. AMI is in a struggling position now because this has become an issue. We have made a lot of changes, including downsizing, moving our office at Don Mills and Lawrence in Toronto to downtown. We are in the Chorus building now, where they broadcast from in right downtown for multiple reasons. And something that is so many of us through the pandemic and since then work from home. Our AMI audio team is pretty well 99% of the time remote. We all work from home and do what we do from our home setups. Be in town maybe once a month if we have to be, but everything is done that way. A lot of the TV people have their days working away, and we work so much now with production companies across Canada, which is what we were supposed to do when given the license, because you want to father that kind of business out there and make sure that we are supporting the broadcast industry, but the production industry mostly. And they're making some fantastic content to us in accessible form that we need and have asked them to do and trained them to do. So thumbs up, getting plus points there. That's for sure. But all this has translated to where we're going to get money. What are we going to do? How is that going to look? Can we do something with streaming services and the income? So for us, we're always watching what our government says. Google, we need you to do this, or we want this, Netflix to do that. All that in time, we will see how that falls out. I myself personally, I'm not going to speak for the company. I think the CRTC is pleased with what we do. I think we will be renewed as a broadcaster. But when it comes to programming, it definitely has affected the AMI audio team. We have programming shows that we're losing. We won't be able to travel as much due to the tightening of the belts. We were simulcast, Kelly and Company, and now with Dave Brown on the TV side. So you had us on both. That had to come to an end. For again, some outside of financial reasons. Some of it just wasn't working the way the network wanted it to, whether it be the way our shows were coming off, the look of them. We felt things should have been a little bit better. And they just weren't attracting on the TV side the audience that we had hoped. And there's other plans to do other things, create content that is more evergreen. These are some of the things we'd like to do. We'd love down the road to be able to make stuff more available, like on the AMI app or AMI Plus, where people can go and stream things at their leisure. We know that's what the world is. It's not let's sit and watch Kelly and Company for 2 hours on television necessarily. It's pull up the podcast if we were going to do that, or go on YouTube and check it out. So a lot of these made the decision to take us off TV. A lot of us, thank goodness, were moved over to the AMI audio side. So we didn't lose jobs. Unfortunately, some people did. And that's where we were able to put a Kelly and Company up since last October until this point. And at this point, we will be waving bye to the show, are saying goodbye, have said goodbye, depending when you're listening to this. And it's a tremendous run. 8.5 years. Some of this, most of this, is financial. The show costs quite a bit to do. And also we can allocate the staff resources elsewhere. We will be launching a new show on AMI audio only that will be happening in September. And that show will be documentary based. Other shows at the network will be affected as well. And it'll be a different look come September when we get into the next fiscal. So that's kind of where we're at. A sad time. I certainly have said to people, for me, Kelly and Company was the culmination of a dream. I always wanted to be on air since I was about 9-10 years old. It's what I loved, lived for. Not necessarily a talk show host, even though I talk very well and very long. I always wanted to do it, and AMI gave me the opportunity, of which I'm very lucky and really appreciative. But I really feel we delivered with a wonderful show that had a lot of things, something for everyone, even if you only tuned in once a week to listen to your favorite segment.
Yeah, it's I mean it's tough out there right now, right? Like, you know, and a lot of people don't really think about that. And the effects of doing things like you know, cord cutting, which of course has been something for years, but yeah, I think yeah, COVID really changed the way that we consume media these days and how we consume media, and especially for, you know, you think about who the main demographic is.
Yep.
Definitely in this technological flux right now. You know, even though there is certainly pushback from streaming services, you hear stories all the time about people getting fed up with just being nickel and dimed with with multiple different streaming services, and many of those streaming services are struggling themselves.
Well, there's got to be a cable format that's going to come back.
Yes.
In my head, you can't keep having people pay for Netflix, pay for Disney Plus, there's some company that's going to make a deal with them and be the first that comes out and says, we have all of them, pick your favorite four, and for this price you can have an inclusive as well as TV cable and your internet. And I believe honestly that is what's going to, it's the only thing that makes sense, because people can't keep doing in our environment, especially whether we have talked tariffs or anything. It's just ridiculous. And unfortunately, we do things over and over again in our society as human beings, just think it's the first time that it's been done. But this would have been what was done when cable first ever came to be.
Yeah, it is. It's very ironic, isn't it? That we're going to land right exactly where we were, you know, when this all started.
It will be delivered differently. It'll be that little device you plug into your television and right there, you know, your you know, your little dongle, or I always make fun of say it wrong, but it'll be something like that, that a stick you put in there, and the way it goes, and you'll be able to do so many other things, pull up your YouTube and everything.
Well, and we have to get to that point, because you look at the streaming services that many of us are subscribed to, it's the same as what we're paying for our cable currently.
Yes.
Right? How can you consistently do that month after month?
But we laugh
after
and
month,
pretend
right?
we're saving money.
Yes.
I have so many people say, oh, I don't need that cable. I don't need to waste money on that. No, but you will on 5 streaming services all at once,
Right.
Yeah.
which adds up to more.
Yeah.
Yeah. The big benefit, I think, for people too, is that, you know, when we are talking about streaming, you can consume that content on your own schedule, right? That's also the main thing. Like, you know, the days of, and, you know, I'm as guilty of this as anybody. You know, I haven't watched live TV in I don't know how long. And you just really get used to just being able to be like, this is when I want to watch whatever show that I'm currently working on. You know, I don't want to have to wait till 8 o'clock on a Wednesday night to watch this show, or I want to be able to just watch them all and binge watch them,
Or even record and skip commercials, right?
Yeah, that's
like
right.
I don't watch sports live anymore. Why would I? I just avoid hearing the final score, but because I can't stand the commercials.
Yeah.
The only problem with that, though, is you get into a show and then it's gone, right? We need to know what the termination dates are on some of these shows and seasons.
At least over September through April, you had something to look forward to. Now you watch it in a week, and where is it? I got to wait a whole year. And it's like a new. But then people go back now and rewatch stuff like it's the first time, and I find that really interesting. The other thing that this is funny to me is, we have no patience, and I don't know if that was just always been the way. I probably was like that even as a teenager. But people get their news from reels, from social media stuff they watch, and they think they know the whole story. So we all become experts on the 4 lines we just read off of X.
Yeah,
Well,
That's very true.
Just to quote my president, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
I was waiting for one of you to do it.
I'm allowed to do it. I'm the American, so
That's
I'm allowed
right.
to do it.
Yeah, I was waiting for the, you know, because it's just that was the emphasis, intentional emphasis he put on that too. I'm trying to say these people are effing it up.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. That's as good as my Trump gets. That's it. That's all I got, folks.
It is a really interesting landscape right now. And that's not even, you know, I think that you have to factor in as well the other big elephant in the room, which is YouTube.
Yep.
I know a lot of people that don't even bother with subscription services anymore. They can consume all their content, news, entertainment, whatever, just off watching things like YouTube, Twitch. Like there's all kinds of other platforms out there that can keep you busy for many, many hours of the day so that, you don't even need to touch any sort of cable or subscription service. So, that also factors into it as well.
And that's how we have to think when we go in front of the CRTC over the next year or so, I think it is. That discussion has to happen. I had a talk to the other way to look at it that's very interesting, going back to the how come there's just not as many people. We see all these broadcast schools closing. My alma mater, Fanshawe, is stopping its broadcast radio course completely, which is like 5 in this 500-mile radius. It's absolutely ridiculous and heartbreaking. Had a talk on our show one day with Dan Showman, the voice of the Toronto Blue Jays on TV. He was on the show, and I really wanted to talk to him about when he volunteered at Radio Western in London, Ontario, here at the university. This goes back years, and he said he just walked in and said, "I want to volunteer." Okay, and he volunteered as a student at the school, and what it's leapt him into, being a national broadcaster for Canada's national baseball team, being the Sunday night baseball broadcaster for ESPN for a while. So this is someone who really elevated their game and would give so much credit to the fact that he was able to go and volunteer. Well, stations now aren't allowed letting people do that stuff. They're not allowed to ride on the backs of volunteers and meanwhile not paying them, poorly paying their on-air people or the people at the bottom of the ladder, while the execs up at the top are raking in the money. So you see this as a reflection of the industry, but also less people being interested. Some will say, well, I don't need that. I can go on YouTube, and if I pick the right topic, I can become well-known enough, get enough hits, and be paid for it and never have to spend a day in school. So when it comes to the broadcast industry, it's becoming very scary. It's no longer just terrestrial radio, as people would say, oh, it's in danger, it's going. Now all of it's, in my opinion, has to be fearful.
Well, you look at automation too, right? How many stations are still manned 24/7?
Yep.
Probably not many.
No, and the ones that have people, a lot of them are getting someone to voice track content for 5 or 6 or more stations. I've heard like nutty numbers. I've heard of people doing it who are put on stations. Not, nighttime you used to have that broadcaster that was on 120 stations, syndicated. Yay. But now you can sit there and get someone in Toronto to record for all the chum. Well, what are they called now? I better not say chum. I'm dating myself. But all of these stations for Rogers, I'll say Rogers. I'll pick on them like I do Bell. The Rogers stations in Ontario, and they can say we don't need a midday person. We're just going to have this person do voice tracking for all 10 of these stations or whatever it might be. It's really sad.
Has there been any talk about having Artie do the voice tracking?
They're worried about Artie too. I think that's really the whole business of the strike, right? The actors, the writers strike and everything like that, because they know people are going to come up with a concept for a TV series, get writers to write it for a year, and then get an Artie type friend to sit there and write the next 5 seasons. That's what they're trying to protect, because people keep saying, hey, that's my jobs. Well, you can't just send that to AI. Sure we can. Oh, that was a good AI episode. Written by AI.
And we're getting to the point where you wouldn't even know it was written by AI.
No. And voices. Right?
Yes.
I get into this. I started it on our show with our Chatty Bookshelf host, Ryan Huey, when he was on the program. I like to get him where it wound up by saying, yeah, you love all those narrators, right? Oh, yeah. They talk about who their favorite narrator was. And I'd say, wait till AI takes over. What? I said, wait till they go to these celebrities, pay them $1 million, and from that one celebrity, get them to voice 100 books. Oh, it'll never be like that. I said, you guys are fooling yourselves. You know better. Won't be. You're right. It will never be like that for at least 2 years.
Oh, they're cataloging, Morgan Freeman's voice.
Oh,
because he'll be the official narrator, forever.
Forever.
Yeah, it's nothing to create a voice voice print. Yeah.
Yeah. Take that profile and away you go. And who's going to say no when a publisher says we will pay you this amount of money and we'll pay you that in 5 years when we want you to do more if you're still with us.
Yeah, and I think with the amount of content as well, having live describers record the tracks and the scripts just isn't going to be feasible. There's going to be too much content developed too quickly for any person to keep up.
Well, we already know that the percentage of books that have audio in the world has only gone up because sighted people have grabbed right onto them and are very interested in the content, which is fantastic. But the one thing about not just sighted people, they're not all blind people are that, oh my God, that narrator, he can't be out of a job. I love that voice. When it comes to the fact that someone says, so you have a choice here. We can find a way to produce 1 billion books within a year that you no longer don't have access to right now, or we can just do it the old-fashioned way and throughout the world produce 1 million books this year with audio. And that is the proposition where we're all going to say, hey, there's not enough narrators out there to battle that in the world. And we really only think of, oh my gosh, to have any book I could want, as soon as I hear about it, I can get it at the same time everyone else is. No nonsense. Oh, what narrator? And I hate it because it's scary to think of anyone losing their jobs. I don't even mean to jest about it, but I also see the same thing for audio description. I mean, hey, if you gave me the choice that every single thing was going to be described and they could do it easy with AI, no problem, no cost to it, to make it something that all broadcasters should want to have content that's available that way, of course I'm going to raise my hand and say, please, yes, please.
Well, and we're still fighting the battle of educating people that audio description's a thing, right? So we're still fighting the battle when publishers will just be able to create this stuff on their own at the same time. We're not going to have to worry about the education side of things, or is the class being taught a 15-minute segment on accessibility? Hopefully it's just going to be baked in.
It really look like it too for a while. I've had conversations because I've done a couple of pieces for Netflix of audio description, and the idea of getting low vision blind people something like that to do, or other areas in the industry to start us moving, as we see a little bit more movement on that aspect of actually using people with lived experience for something, like they did with the movie series C. And I get it. I think at any way people can get in, and that was the one thing I always found when I did television. I loved when people walked up to me on the street and said, hey, I see you on your TV show. And it wasn't all about the ego of, yes, yes, you sure did. It was more about, they wanted to know, that stunt you did, were you scared? Like, were you crapping your pants out doing that? They didn't want to know because, oh, you're blind. That must have really scared. They wanted to know because they would have been scared crapping their drawers if it were them. And I thought, and I remember going back and telling people at work, this is a really cool thing. And they'd say, well, that's nice. Somebody recognized you. I said, no, that's not the point. The point was they watch our stuff and blind people are on TV is no longer a surprise.
Right.
It's just part of life. It's whether they're watching Murdoch Mysteries, which we ran a lot back then, they still saw our promos and we weren't a surprise. They weren't calling the rest of the family in to say, hey, look, a blind guy on TV. Oh, you're full of it. There's no blind guy on that set. Oh, there is. It really was wonderful.
About the experience more than the person and the disability.
And they got used to it. And that's what we all want. We say we want. And I understand at times it's an inconvenience because people say, oh, geez, I forgot you were blind when they've run you into something. But it's really, we have to always fight for, and the low vision blind committee has always been weaker at it than other committees. I mean, look at closed captioning. I don't recall any time in my level of memory of them not saying this show has closed captioning. It's been there since the 60s at least.
But you bring up a really good point, and we talk about this all the time on the show. Why is it that education is so slow to really creep into the general mindset? And I always think about autism as sort of the gold standard of something that people knew nothing about, and then one day it just the tide turned and people became really aware of autism and how it was a spectrum.
It's faster now, and I think social media is doing it because no one wants to be preached at. When I've had people grab me to guide me or pull me along somewhere, if I say, oh, no, don't do that. If you do that to a blind person, now I'm lecturing them. They're embarrassed. They don't want to hear that. But if they see that on YouTube, somebody grabbing some blind guy and dragging him along, they're like, oh, my God, Oh, what an idiot. You can't do that to someone. Just grab them like that. We learn better just learning in our own way in our own time. And I think that's what's happened when it comes to certain disabilities have gotten out there. They have been really good at and not being abashed at saying, this is me. This is what I do. This is the things I like. This is how I do this. Oh, and they, whether it's got the warts on it and all things that people say, oh, I'm uncomfortable to see that. Wow. They keep watching. Right. They keep learning.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, I would, as much as I hate to do it, I mean, I would give credit to things like streaming platforms. I would, there's that show, Love on the Spectrum, for example. Yep. I mean, yes. These are the things that people watch and they enjoy watching and they learn. And that's, as long as these shows continue to portray whatever disability community, it's involved in an accurate light, I think that it can't hurt. But it's a slippery road, especially when you're talking about things like, reality shows or dating shows or whatever, because so much of that stuff is manufactured, right? But I think that that's kind of what it takes to really seep into the sort of the cultural zeitgeist, is that you have to, the content needs to be being consumed somewhere and somehow.
And I think it has to seem normal and not frightening. We don't like anything we don't understand. Sure. So instantly we become, oh, I don't really understand why that person does that, or how come they have a twitch, or how come their eyes, they don't make eye contact with me. I mean, for people who are afraid to carry a cane, they're low vision, they can get by without it. But there are still those moments where someone looks right at them, or if they bump somebody or they're doing something, trying to maybe grab a door handle or something like that, or there's a contrast they can't deal with, and someone's watching them, the first thing we think, oh, they're drunk. They're high on something. They've got to be. What would be the reason they'd miss doing that? Well, they're sight impaired. What?
Yeah.
And like you say, it's just, there's not enough. I love shows where characters are there with a disability or whatever you may want to call it, but there's no particular reason. It's not the arc, right, part of the arc of the story. Right. I think that's what promotes the normacy.
Yeah, 100%. And again, a show that I absolutely loved, that I think that did that amazingly, was Breaking Bad.
Yes.
If you remember that show,
sure.
The main character, his son had CP, cerebral palsy, and it wasn't part of a plot line, really. It was just a fact of the matter.
Yeah.
And that's how they treated it. And I thought this is a stellar example of how you want to portray disability in sort of a mainstream show.
Yeah, and it would be interesting to chart which, if you could draw a line from that character to knowledge base and what it does for the audience members to awareness of the disability, and find out where, I bet you there's certain things that we would say now, and as we were talking about the autism, that people just have more of a grasp on. Other worlds, maybe blindness being one of them, are more of that's in the Shadowland. I don't know anything about that. I mean, we've certainly gotten away from all blind characters on TV having to wear sunglasses and being, some kind of smart person that can hear everything and
that's right,
all over the place.
Yeah, it does kind of make me think that there's a very interesting, I think, conversation around the idea of advocacy and entertainment, and how to sort of marry those two in a way that is going to be most effective to really sort of drive things forward for the disability community. Are those types of conversations that would happen a lot at AMI?
I know we talk a lot about it on our show. We've always discussed, I mean, the places we would go were like conversations like this every day. It was somebody would, and again, we didn't live constantly in our disabled world because we all know we don't want to do that. But I mean, if I needed to know a little bit more about something, we didn't hesitate to say, tell us what that looked like. What is that? Well, I don't really know because I haven't been able to see. I don't quite know what that is. Fill us in for some of our listeners that may not know, or our perspective of something, such as fears of being, grabbed or whatever. But we talked about everything. So the reflections of so many of these topics over 8.5 years, it has been just amazing. And you get people who, I mean, there are times I'd love when somebody convinced me of something I may have disagreed with, said, it's dumb, I'd never do that or whatever. And by the time they're done talking, yeah, maybe I should think of it that way. They've opened my mind.
And your theme this week is on reflections, isn't it?
Yeah, in all honesty, we've been, for the whole month, one of the things when I was first told the show was being canceled, I asked for us not to do the knee-jerk reaction of, okay, guys, you let the audience know when the show's coming to an end. that this is your last episode or whatever. I think the idea that somebody's, oh, really? Cancel my show, eh? By the way, everybody, this network's full of a bunch of dummies or whatever they thought somebody would do. And my view is, well, no, because they're going to ask for a job reference. Even if we're out of a job, they want something that's not going to happen. And the company was gracious enough to allow us a month to reflect on what we call the live show era at AMI. It really was special to us. So we've been talking to everybody, but it's interesting because the new show that we're doing in September launching is called Reflections. So I kind of made a little bit of a remark about that on a show the other day, and we'll be, sharing that kind of information more openly now about what that show looks like and who's kind of involved more so in that show. I'm going to be becoming a senior feature reporter, for example. So I'll be bringing a documentary story along with a few others to the table every week. That will be the goal of what our new jobs will be, and this will be audio only. A lot of us, I always say, we're CBC wannabes. Oh, we love the idea of documentary, not the background. We don't necessarily have the background, but then we stop and look and say, what the hell have we been doing for the past 14, 15 years? Yeah, we have the background. We certainly do. We just may not have the 20 producers hanging around like CBC shows do. And I'm sure they'd argue that.
So with the new show, then where is it going to be, and how can people make sure that they're catching it?
On AMI Audio, I'm going to guess a time, and I think I'm right at this. I believe it's currently scheduled for 1 p.m. Eastern time on AMI Audio. It will be 4 days a week, and we'll be repeating a previous episode after it. I will also be producing some columns, if you want to call them, for YouTube and for AMI Audio that are my own reflections, my own whatever opinion column on whatever I might want to talk about, dropping an F-bomb on this show, or, Trump dropping an F-bomb, whatever it might be. I'm going to do that a couple of times a week, and there's some of the different things that are happening. And a bunch of us are going to get our hands wet creating these documentaries. So that starts September 2nd.
And this must be kind of exciting for you guys as well, because 8 years is a long run, and it's a long run to be doing a daily show, but doing these documentaries, it's very much a shift. How are you guys pivoting into this new format, and what are some of the things that are kind of really exciting to you that you're going to be able to do, now that you're not. There's not all that work in producing a daily show.
Well, and I'm glad you said that. It's the grind. I mean, I said to you guys, I had some stuff I wanted to have organized here to bring up. We've been saying with Kelly and Company, it's a legendary run of the 8.5 years from spooky Halloween when we started in 2016 to now. 9 years of daily talk, which informed everybody, entertained, and empowered Canadians with disabilities out there. Looking at some of the stats, okay, I'll tell you this. We aired nearly 2,000 full shows in that time period. So we really probably shouldn't be too sad and whine about that. That's about 133 days nonstop listening if you ever listen to the whole back catalog. We welcomed over 900 unique guests to the microphone, which is more than the population of some maritime villages out there. With the community reporters, we were able to amplify voices across the country. We had 1,300 community reports from that. That came from Halifax all the way through downtown Vancouver. Real stories from real people. Buzz with Bill, one of our features that we did on, we had over 850 Buzz with Bill segments, 500 roundtable talks, where we had hot takes and interesting conversations. And of course, these clowns took any opportunity they could on those to roast me any way they could. We were so happy with being able to get out and travel. We got screeched in Newfoundland, and we would go to the CNIB hubs when they started kicking those off, and we would get involved with doing a show from there. We did try-it weeks where we went out and tried things such as marksmanship. So we all fired off guns and we recorded it and brought it to the show. So we really tried to show up and get ourselves involved with people. The new show, with its restrictions and stuff like that, as we try to go through this period, we will hopefully get some audio ambient from the field to lend itself to these documentaries. That's something I'm excited for, with such equipment like Zoom recorders that are now accessible and will allow the feature reporters to go out and do these things. We will bring voices to the show, as we call it, reflections. We want those people to talk to us about their pasts and stuff like that. So we will have basically 4 weeks to produce each of the pieces. So I would pitch it today, and in 4 weeks, that in theory, that particular pitch would have become a documentary and be on air. But in the meanwhile, I'm still working on next week's one that's supposed to land and be on the air. I'm still into a quarter way into the pitch I made last week. So yes, it's not the day-to-day grind, but it's going to be, as we take the summer off, our way of trying to learn how the heck we're going to do this, how we're going to make this look, how we're each with the producer and feature reporter working on it, and then handing it off to our senior producer, Matt Agnew, to do the finishing, put the music in and some sound effects and stuff like that, all that landing to where it gets on the air, with it beginning with a pitch meeting, me saying, hey, I'd like to do a story on this, and this is where I'm at with it. What are your thoughts? What do you got for me in connections, contacts, or ideas? And that's going to be, as you said, new, invigorating, I think, for some people. I struggle with the fact on a personal level that I've been a host really living out the Kelly McDonald dream, being on air. I'm still going to be on air. I love anything to do with broadcasting. But it's going to be a very different feel, even down to chatting out on social media. I've been promoting this show, Kelly and Company, for the past 8.5 years. And now, it's going to take a different take, and going to take time to mourn that show and embrace our Reflections program.
Who else is going to be part of that team for that show?
The other feature reporters are Grant Hardy from Vancouver, Nazreen Abdel-Majid, who lives in Mississauga, and of course works out of the Toronto office. And Beth Deer, when she returns, she's been away on a leave, but I think Joey DeGutta is going to work with us for a little while in her absence. Our producers, Ramya and Grace. Grace works right now on AMI Today and is producer there. Ramya, you guys know, she was my former co-host and produces Calico, and she will actually be host producer for the show. So she will be interacting with us as we come in to talk about our piece and ask her questions about it. And our senior producer for that show will be Matt Agnew. With that being said, other shows, there will be changes in the other content. I can't go into too much of that stuff for the big reason of any shows being canceled, any shows being kept on, deserve their time to be able to do what we've had the month to be able to do.
Well, it sounds like it'll be an easier transition then with familiar personalities that you've already worked with for many years.
And fun because, as you say, working with people we've worked with, we have a good sense of what we all can do. And Andy Frank, the manager of AMI Audio, he knows his people really well. Let's face it. Andy was the one that said, yes, I can work with these folks, and took us from possibly being unemployed last September to being employed still on AMI Audio, of which we're very lucky. And so many of us were happy because Andy's always been our favorite manager. And he really wants people to be able to enjoy what they're doing. It's very important to him. And one of the things that, again, not to slight the live shows, but that grind you talked about every day. Finish that show. Okay, what do we have for tomorrow's? It's just continuous. I enjoyed it, but and I did a mix of, I wasn't a producer where I felt maybe some of that heat in a different way, but I certainly produced segments, certainly also brought guests to the show and had to, it's pretty tremendous, as you guys know, lining up guests and making sure people can follow through. They're not getting back to me. Guys, we've got a hole tomorrow. What are we filling with? It's scary and tricky. This show, we know if something by chance happens and something falls through or something doesn't get done, then I guess there'll be 3 episodes that week.
Right. Wait, you can do that?
No, Ryan, you can't.
I didn't say that month. There are going to be 3 this month. Never mind.
New format for AT Banter.
Yeah. Hit and miss. We'll call it the hit and miss format.
We'll release whenever the hell we feel like
when we can.
That's right. Well, we're thinking of doing that with Kelly and Company. Maybe if we go off on the side, we'll just drop an episode every 2 years or something like that.
Yeah, there you go.
Guess what?
You already got a plan for the reunion show.
Yeah. Yep. 5 years, just as I retire.
Yeah, you say. You always got to anticipate those reunion tours,
Yeah.
the greatest hits. Well, listen, sir. Best of luck with the new show. From all accounts, I'm excited, and I will certainly be listening. Once again, just let people know just where they can find you online, find the new show, and yeah, anything else you want to plug, sir?
Yeah, well, I will say people can go back and check out the Kelly and Company podcast. Still going to be there for people who want to check the back catalog of stuff that might be there. I know not everything is from day one, of course. You can find the YouTube page where we have different content. Look for me in September doing whatever we call it. We haven't officially come up with a name for my opinion pieces, but they will also be available on YouTube, possibly off of the Accessible Media YouTube page. On social media can be found at AMI Kelly Mac. On X, and that's pretty well where I am. I haven't drifted off to the others yet. We'll see what I feel like doing. I kind of have a Blue Sky account, but I forget what the heck it is. So
I think that's a Mastodon.
yeah, I know that's where a lot of people going, and I have so many people twisting my arm. Go over to Mastodon. Oh God, I have to know. It takes me years to learn anything.
I know, right?
So, but I do think Blue Sky may become something. We'll see, especially for the media people. But that's kind of the best ways to find me, of course. And people can always reach out. Always love to hear from people. Love to talk, and anything, whether it's sports or broadcasting or old time radio. That's one of my other favorite things that I spend a lot of time and do a group for the CNIB during the winter seasons, playing old time radio shows and talking about it in a conference. So those are some of the things I dabble in and really enjoy and speak for. And guys, really appreciate being invited here, being able to talk about Kelly and Company, and your indulgence of letting me go off like that. And as you said on one show, it is nice at AMI to have people producing and working where hosts can just sit back, not like you poor devils have to do everything else.
That's right.
I gotta talk to Mr. F over there.
Yes.
Let's see if we can get AT Banter over there.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, there you go.
That's
Yeah,
the way
we'll-
to go.
We'll sell out.
And you know what he'll
Absolutely.
say about the budget, or shall I say lack thereof?
Yeah, yeah,
What's a
right.
budget?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Maybe in the next fiscal, or the one after, or the one after.
That's right.
Well, listen, sir, best of luck to you. Keep in touch. And
Yes.
hey, yeah, anytime you want to come on, please come back.
Anytime, guys. Really appreciate it. Always love laughing along with you all the time. Liz, love hearing you on. Ryan, Rob. Well, Rob.
Go sports.
Guys, really appreciate it.
sports.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Go.
All right, Kelly, take it easy, sir, and we'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you later, guys.
All right. See
Okay,
ya.
take it easy, Kelly. All right, but hey, listen, we're running late, so we should get the hell out of here. What do you think?
Yep. Let's do it.
All right, well, hey, Liz.
Hey, Rob.
Just where the heck can people find us?
They can find us at atbanter.com.
Wah, 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 wah.
Oh, sorry there. I got distracted by whistling "We Are the Champions" over here.
Shut up. Dang, Earlers.
I was drinking some beer out of the Stanley Cup. Sorry.
Oh.
I'm sorry, that
Wait,
Stanley
wait.
Cup in Florida.
He
Oh,
couldn't
yeah,
have
that's
lift the
true,
Stanley
actually.
Cup, Liz.
Okay, that's fine. It's fine. It was a Stanley mug.
There you
actually.
go.
I'm sure your Earlers were crying in the locker room.
I'm
Oh,
sure.
probably.
Sure, and they're not my Oilers.
They're
hardly.
whiny babies.
Well, we'll see when hockey season starts next week. We'll see what.
No, we
it's
got about
done,
6
yeah.
weeks.
So there you go.
There you go.
What?
What?
What? Huh? What? Huh? What?
atbanter.com.
They can also email us if they so desire at cowbell at atbanter.com. What
Is that
else?
what I
Where else
said?
can you find us?
They can also find us online at atbanter.com.
No, we already said that. They can also find us on social media
And
Facebook.
atbanter.com.
and atbanter.com.
Well,
And
that'll about do it for
Okay.
us this
Are we-
week. Big thanks to Kelly McDonald.
for joining us. And
We'll
Come
see
on.
everybody next week on atbanter.com.
there you go. See, that's teamwork right there.
This podcast has been brought to you by Canadian Assistive Technology. providing low vision and blindness solutions, as well as physical access solutions and augmentative communication aids across Canada. Find us online at www.canastech.com, or if you're in the Vancouver Lower Mainland, visit our storefront at number 106 828 West 8th Avenue in Vancouver. That's one block off Broadway at Willow. You can reach us by phone toll-free at 1-844-795-8324 or by email at sales@canastech.com.